Hi guys, this is going to be our lecture for chapter 4, reading. This is definitely one of my favorite chapters. I think you can get a lot from learning some of the techniques for muscle reading, what to do before you read, what to do while you're reading, what to do after you read. So definitely some key elements and exercises and tools that you can take from this class and apply it to more difficult classes. As every chapter, I want to start off this chapter with a quote. If you think reading is boring, you're doing it wrong. That is definitely my take-home message to you. I enjoy reading a lot, especially if it's something that interests me. Personally, I'll say that I like reading books on meditation, reading books on self-improvement. I think that's one of the reasons why I like teaching personal growth. I also like to read fantasy novels. I also like to read sci-fi, science fiction. It really just depends on the reading, but if you think reading is boring, you're definitely doing it wrong. And that's something that I want you to take with you from this class. Let's talk about what will be our different elements of what you will be learning in this chapter. We're going to talk about muscle reading, and then phase 1, what to do before you read, phase 2, what to do while you read, and phase 3, what to do after you read. Also getting past the roadblocks to reading, how to read faster, and developing information literacy. As with all of the chapters, there is a why, a what if, a how, and a what. I want you to picture yourself sitting at a desk with a book in your hands. Your eyes are open, and it looks like you're reading. Suddenly your head jerks up, you blink, you realize that you have been scanning the page for 10 minutes and you can't remember a single thing that you have read. This happens to all of us. In this chapter, the why we have a reading chapter is because higher education really requires you to do an extensive amount of reading and also of complex material. How you can improve, I want you to skim this chapter for 3 techniques that you'd like to try maybe this week. I do know that this class is accelerated, so definitely maybe you want to try these techniques when you're going through a 6-week class. What if you could finish your reading faster and easily recall key points? That would be ideal for those difficult maybe science classes or history classes. And we're going to talk about the power processes, muscle reading, getting past roadblocks, reading faster, and information literacy. Let's talk about muscle reading. Picture this. You got up at 6 a.m. to get to class by 8 a.m. After a long day at school and 4 classes, you leave campus at 5 p.m. You forgot that you didn't buy groceries, so you stop at the market to buy your groceries. Then you get home, you put everything away, you eat something, and now it's 8 o'clock and you begin reading an assignment called The Equity Method of Accounting for Common Stock Investments. Then you say to yourself, this class is my investment in the future. I need to go through this. And you go through 2 paragraphs and begin the 3rd. Suddenly, everything in the room looks different. Your head is resting on your elbow, which is resting on the page you were reading. The clock says 11 p.m. and you just wasted 3 hours. This happens to all of us. An active reader, let's talk about what an active reader does. An active reader stays alert, poses questions as she reads, searches for the answers as she or he reads. Also, an active reader recognizes the information within the text, separates the main points from the general points, and from the supporting materials. An active reader quizzes himself or herself about the material and makes notes. An active reader instantly spots key terms and takes the time to find the definition of words. And an active reader thinks critically about the ideas as she or he reads. This sounds like a lot to do, but skilled readers do this and more during the reading process, and they actually enjoy it. Master students, the title of this book, Becoming a Master Student, master students do this all the time. One way to experience this is to approach reading with a system in mind called muscle reading. You can use muscle reading to prevent your mind's mini vacations. Once you master the system, you might actually spend less time on your reading and get more out of it. Muscle reading has 3 steps, and they're listed in front of you. Step 1, preview. Step 2, outline. Step 3, question. Previewing the material by skimming it, writing an outline of the major headings and subheadings, and then turning those headings and subheadings into questions. Muscle reading is a technique you can use to extract the ideas and information you want. Phase 1 includes the steps to take before you read. For Phase 1, visualize yourself prying out questions from a text. These questions will be the ones you want answered based on a brief survey of the assignment. In this phase, you will preview, you will outline, and you will question. So let's talk about Phase 1. Preview. Before you start reading, preview the entire assignment or chapter. Don't memorize, just preview, skim. If it's a new book, look at the table of contents, flip through some pages. If you're going to read chapter 1, look at the pages. Read the chapter headings and subheadings. Also look for summary statements. When previewing, seek out concepts that are familiar. Take a few moments to reflect on what you already know about the subject. This technique prepares your brain to accept new information. Look for things that spark your interest, imagination, or curiosity. Look for drawings, graphs, diagrams, charts. Imagine what could be on the test. Ask yourself how this material can relate to you. This preview step can take maybe, let's say, 5 minutes. Outline is step 2. With complex material, take time to understand the structure of what you are about to read. Outlining actively organizes your thoughts and makes information easier to understand. If the text has chapter outlines, take some time studying them. When an outline is not provided, sketch a brief one. Headings in the text can serve as major and minor entries in your outline. The amount of time devoted to the step varies. Question is step 3. Before you begin to do careful reading, determine what you want from the assignment. Then write down questions, including any questions that resulted from your preview. Something helpful is turning headings into questions. If the title is transference, you can say, "What is transference?" And you need the answer to this question as you read. Asking questions is a technique for your brain to get involved, but you don't have to answer every question. Let's talk about Phase 2. While you read, you want to focus and you want to flag answers. Phase 2 of muscle reading consists of 2 steps. First, students focus their reading by thinking about the questions they developed in Phase 1. As they read, flag answers by highlighting them in the text. For Phase 2, you're focused on finding answers to your questions. For Phase 2, your focus is on finding answers to your questions. Underline, highlight, or mark up text in other ways. You have previewed the reading assignment. You have organized it in your mind or on paper and formulated questions. Now you're going to begin reading. Let's talk about the Phase 2 steps. Step 4, focus. Just moving your eyes across the page does not mean that you're reading. You need to be mentally focused. As you read, be conscious of where you are and what you are doing. Be in the moment. If you notice your attention wandering, gently bring it back to the present moment. Get into a physical position to stay focused. Sit up, keep your spine straight, avoid reading in bed, except for fun. Avoid marathon reading sessions. Schedule breaks and set a reasonable goal for the entire session. Then reward yourself with a little something for 10 to 15 minutes every hour or 2. For difficult reading, set more limited goals. Read for half an hour and then take a break. It is very helpful to read the material out loud. Step 5. Flag answers. As you read, seek out the answers to your questions. You're like a detective watching for every clue. When you do find an answer, flag it so that it stands out on the page. Deface your book. Have fun flagging answers by highlighting, underlining, write comments, fill in your outline, or mark pages in any other way that helps you. Marking up your books offer other benefits. When you mark with a highlighter, you involve your kinesthetic senses of touch and motion. Circle items, place asterisks on topics, write personal comments next to sentences, number items, etc. Flagging key information can save you lots of time when you're studying for tests. Phase 3. After you have read the assigned material, see how many of the questions you developed in Phase 1 you can answer out loud. Reviewing and reviewing again later are the final 2 steps of Phase 3. After you read in Phase 3, it is like you are hearing your voice reciting what you've learned. Listen to yourself making a speech or singing a song about the material as you review it. Let's talk about Phase 3, Step 6, Recite. Talk to yourself about what you've read, or talk to someone else. When you finish reading an assignment, make a speech about it. Some students do this in front of the mirror, and that technique works well for them. Talking about a topic out loud reinforces your summarization skills, which enforce your learning skills. Step 7, Review. Plan to do your first review within 24 hours of reading the material. A review in 24 hours moves information from your short-term to your long-term memory. This review can be short, maybe 15 minutes, but investing early pays off later. Step 8, Review again. The final step in muscle reading is a weekly or monthly review. It can take 4 to 5 minutes per assignment, but go over your notes. The purpose behind this step is to keep the neural pathways to the information open and to make them more distinct. Let's talk about extending muscle reading to web pages and ebooks. Phase 1 before you read, Phase 2 while you read, and Phase 3 after you read. I want you to go through these different phases. I want you to read what's in front of you, and I want you to apply these steps of Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 for a web page or an ebook. They are similar, but I want you to read through these steps and see how this can be applicable to you as opposed to using these steps on an actual textbook. Let's talk about when reading is tough, because there are just some subjects that are going to be more difficult for us. Sometimes ordinary reading methods are not enough. It's easy to get bogged down in a murky of reading assignments. Master readers monitor their understanding of the reading material. They do not see confusion as a weakness. Instead, confusion is a challenge. When reading is tough, let's talk about some techniques that you can do. Read it again. Some students think that reading means glancing over every word written on each page of a book, but this is an ineffective way to go through college material. So when I say read it again, it means focus on it again. Look for essential words. If you're stuck in a paragraph, look up the words you do not know and then read it again. Hold a mini review. Pause to summarize, either verbally or in writing, what you've learned so far. Stop and recite in your own words what you just have read. When you recite in your own words, you are actually comprehending what you're reading and putting it into how you understand it. So reading something out loud is sometimes one of the best techniques to use. Talk to someone who can help. Admit when you're stuck, then bring questions to classmates or study group members or the tutor. Stand up. Changing positions periodically can combat fatigue. Being in one position for a long time is not something that's effective. So stand up, change your position. Skip around. Jump to the next section or the end of a tough chapter. You might have lost the big picture, but getting to a section that you can actually understand allows you to go back and comprehend what you didn't before. Also, find a tutor. Mesa College has free tutoring services. If you take a class on campus or online, we still have tutors available for you at the LRC, the Learning Resource Center. Use another text. Find a similar text in the library expressed in a different way. It may allow you to understand the topic better. Note where you get stuck. When you feel stuck, you stop reading, but indeed stop purposefully and diagnose what's going on. Mark what section made you feel lost and then read it again. Also, stop reading. When nothing works, do not despair. Take a break, catch a movie, go for a walk, exercise, sleep, and allow for some time for the topics to be processed. Let's talk about getting past roadblocks. Even the best strategies for reading can fail when you're dealing with other things. There are some strategies on how to get past them, though. Number 1, schedule time for reading. Create a reading plan. Read a certain amount of pages per day and do not leave 300 pages for the next day. Estimate the total number of pages that you'll read. Look over each course syllabus and see how many are there. Make a list and plan your daily, weekly readings. Then estimate how many pages you can read per hour and then how many hours you can devote to reading. Let me show you something that's in front of you. So if you read, it says 600 total pages of all courses this term, right? Maybe that's just your number. If you divide it by 10 pages read per hour, it equals 60, the total reading hours needed per term. Okay, but you might be taking a 16-week course. So 60, the total reading hours needed for the term, and divided by 16, the weeks in the term, 3.75 hours per week to schedule for reading. It just depends on how many readings you have to do for how many classes. Step 2, making choices about what to read. Making choices about what to read is something that you can do. Book about time management often mention the 80-20 principle. 80% of the value created by any group derives from only 20% of its members. If you have 10 items on your to-do list, you'll get 80% of your desired results by only doing 2 items on the list. Basically, focus on what creates the most value. Caution, this principle is not to suggest that you can only complete 20% of your reading assignments. It is a tool to help you find the most important elements in what you read. Skilled readers often make choices on what to read and what not to read. Dealing with interruptions. Sometimes our friends, family, roommates, spouse, children can become a temporary roadblock to our reading. You can help this by tending to people first. When you first come home from school, spend time with those you love and then settle into studying. Also plan for interruptions. Have already made review cards with key terms, etc. When you can't read everything, read something, at least something that you can actually absorb. Let's talk about reading faster. One way to read faster is to read faster. Make a conscious effort to do so. Read faster. Practice, practice, practice. Experiment with the just do it method. You can practice right now. Read the entire page 137 from your chapter, where I'm lecturing from currently, and see how much you can actually remember. So practice. Get your body ready. Get off the couch or the bed. Sit straight on a desk or table, or on the edge of the chair with your feet flat on the floor. Set a time limit. Use a clock to time yourself. Set a goal, 3 chapters in an hour maybe. Relax. It is easier to just read when you're relaxed. Move your eyes faster. One way to help your eyes read faster is to follow them along with your finger. The faster your finger moves, so will your eyes. It can also be a pen or a pencil. Notice and release weak habits. Our eyes make regressions, meaning they back up and reread words. You can reduce these moments called regressions by paying attention to them. Cover words and lines that you have just read. Also, you're more likely to read faster if you do not read out loud or move your lips. Although that is contradictory to what we said about muscle reading, but if you want to practice reading faster, don't read out loud or move your lips. 2 different techniques that we're talking about here. If you're pressed for time, then just skim. Experiment with skimming, reading headings, subheadings, lists, charts, graph, and summaries. This suggestion is more about reading smarter, not much faster. If you learn some simple strategies, you can read text and other college reading materials faster and increase your time. I want you guys to read this section on your own. Mastering the English language. This is definitely the last part of this chapter. This is on pages 140 to 141. What I want you to know from this section is that learning English is complex, challenging for people who grew up in another language, with another language at home. And for native speakers of English as well. To get the most benefit from your education, you must analyze the ways that you speak and write English. Look for patterns that might block your success. I want you to read pages 140 and 141 yourself. And I want you to take this into account, mastering the English language. Okay? This puts us at the end of chapter 4, reading. I will see you guys again on chapter 5.